Hello everyone. I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today I am going to talk to y'all about how to query a literary agent. So this is a question that I see on a ton of the Facebook groups, on Reddit, on writing forums, and whatever. And usually this question is paired with, how do I get published and how do I get a literary agent? Whereas people kind of think this is like a hand-in-hand thing. And the first thing I'm going to tell y'all is that it's not. It's not a package deal sort of thing. So it's kind of a chicken or the egg sort of scenario here, in that let's say that you are a hopeful writer, that you've not gotten a book published yet, and you have your finished manuscript, it's all nice and polished, and you're ready to send it off into the world. What do you do with it? So I do have other videos on how exactly to go about the self-publishing process, as well as how exactly to go about the traditional publishing process and how to research publishers. So I have those videos. The links are in the description below. Be sure to check those out. Specifically, how to go about getting a literary agent is similar to submitting your manuscript to a traditional publisher, but it's a little more complicated than that. And the thing is that once you get a literary agent, then they're able to open the door and be able to submit your manuscript on your behalf to publishers. So it is a little bit of a package deal like that if you already have the literary agent. However, as an author, if you are just starting out, querying a literary agent is not where you should be spending your time and energy. Most literary agents are not going to take on authors that haven't yet gotten a book published. Think about it this way. It's kind of like a gamble. They're investing in you. A literary agent gets paid by taking a percentage of the royalties that you're going to earn from your book being published with a traditional publisher. So they only get paid if you get paid. And if you don't have any books published yet, that means that they don't have any sort of track record to know if, one, any of your books are going to get published, and two, if any of those books are going to make significant sales for either of you to make any sort of money. That's not exactly a gamble that most literary agents are really going to make. So keep that in mind, that if you are first starting out, focus more on getting your books published. And then once you have like a few of them under your belt, and if you're getting like significant sales with them and you're really building your brand, then go out shopping for literary agents. This is very much a chicken and the egg, is that you want to make sure that you're more established as an author before you go hunting for a literary agent. But also, getting a literary agent is really going to help boost your sales as an author and really going to help you establish your brand. So it's kind of tricky in that regard. Personally, I attempted to try and get a literary agent back in 2021. Now, I'm pretty sure part of this was that I was also attempting to do this back when the market was still very volatile because of the pandemic. Things were financially really bad for everybody all around, and so a lot of publishers were not really looking to take on as many new books, as well as the market was flooded, just absolutely flooded with so many more hopeful writers and so many more books, because so many people during the pandemic finally decided to sit down and achieve their dream of writing a book. So more competition, less opportunity. But I still went through the experience and did my best, and I learned a lot. So as of today, I do not have a literary agent, and I have taken that experience, and there are some more things that I'm going to do with my author career before I engage in that process again. But that is something that I am going to be engaging in the next 5 years, because once I reach the goals that I have, I think I am going to have a better shot of winning a literary agent by then. This is all from my personal experience, but I can't really speak to necessarily what happens after you get a literary agent, because I personally haven't experienced that yet. But I do kind of know the gist of it from what I've learned about the industry from other authors that I know who do have agents. So as I've talked about in the past, a great way to meet a literary agent is to do it in person, is to go to events and conventions that cater to authors, where you're going to have the opportunity to network with these business professionals. That's a really great way to cut the red tape, to meet them in person, and to get some genuine feedback on your story, because a lot of them because a lot of them will let you get in your short elevator pitch and they'll let you know if they're interested or not. And if they are interested, they'll typically hand you a business card with their personal email address. And I don't necessarily mean like their like personal email address, but their email address rather than the submission's email address for your manuscript. And so that's also a thing that people don't realize, is that I've also seen people ask, they're like, hey, I'm thinking about writing a book. How do I go get a literary agent? And they haven't even written a book yet. So you have to have a completed manuscript in order to submit to a literary agent. That's what you submit to them, is your manuscript. And it's the same process as submitting to a traditional publisher, is that you need to have a manuscript that has not yet been published, and you need to go to their website, whether it's there through an agency that has multiple agents, or it's through a publisher that has agents connected to it, or they have their own personal website, whatever. Do your research, make sure that you are finding legit literary agents that can actually get you gigs and through the door with publishers, and not just some rando that's like, I'm a literary agent, and they have no idea what they're doing. So make sure you do your research, figure out who you think is a good fit, not just for you, but also for them. Literary agents oftentimes will have a description of what kinds of stories they're interested in representing, and that list is usually super specific. And if your story doesn't fit, they're not going to consider you, so don't waste your time. So make sure that you examine not just what genre is you're writing, but also a lot of the tropes that you use, what's the audience that you're looking to reach. All of that is what the literary agent is going to look at in whether or not they want to represent you. So then follow the directions on their website of how to submit to them. It's usually like the first 3 pages or the first 10 pages or the first chapter, whatever it says. And then you also have to include a query letter, which is essentially like, you know, hello, so-and-so, I'm really interested in you being my literary agent, and I am so-and-so, and this is what I'm all about, and this is what my books are all about, and this is what you can expect from me in the future, and blah, blah, blah. Thank you so much for your consideration. Yay. There are examples online that you can look up on how to write a query letter. Obviously, please don't copy what I just said. That's a very simplified, very silly way of putting it. Don't do that. It's not professional. But in a nutshell, that's kind of what you need to write, is like, be nice to them, flatter them, tell you who you are, what you're all about, what your books are about, what they can expect from you, la la la, the end. And that is crucial. Your query letter is crucial because they read that first. And if they think it's not professional, or they're not interested, or, you know, whatever, that is what they're looking at first. They're not even going to look at your story yet. They're going to look at your query letter first. So make sure that is on point. And then, of course, make sure that your manuscript is highly polished and presentable and stuff like that as well. They may have other requirements that they'll ask you to send, whether it's like an author bio or some other information. Some of them even ask for what is your marketing plan. So that's also important to consider, is that, once again, getting traditionally published means you still have to market your own books. Getting a literary agent means you still have to market your own books. The only way you're going to be able to get away with not marketing your own books is if you get to stardom status like Stephen King or whatever, or if you pay a publicist. Otherwise, at some capacity, you're going to have to market your own books. That's just something you're going to have to do. And submitting to a literary agent, a lot of them are going to ask you what your marketing plan is. And that means actually laying out, what are you going to do to market your books? What's your social media plan? What conventions are you attending? Are you doing book signings? Are you doing book events? Are you going to libraries? These are all things you have to think about because they're going to ask you. And if you're like, oh no, they're not going to sign with you. Because in this industry, it's all about that we have to work together. They don't just go out there and do for you. It's a symbiotic relationship. You have to be just as hungry to get your book out there to readers as they are. If it's obvious that you don't care, why should they care? Why should they invest in you? Keep all of this in mind when querying a literary agent, because honestly, querying for a publisher is very, like, you have to be professional, you have to be serious, you have to be hungry, you have to follow all the rules. Literary agent is like up here. There's a lot, the standards are higher, even higher. So keep that in mind when going through this process. It's going to be even more difficult, and way more is going to be expected of you than even submitting to a traditional publisher. So be prepared, because it's going to be a ride, y'all. Once you do all that and you follow the rules and submit everything they ask for on the website and stuff, there is a service called Query Tracker. And I mentioned this in the past that you can use it to track publishers, but its main purpose is to track literary agents. And it's exactly what it sounds like, where you can track your query letter to the literary agent. And so they have a database on there of all these different literary agents. And if your agent isn't on there, that's probably a red flag. But they'll oftentimes also give you information based on results that other people have said is about how long can you expect for them to respond to your query. Is it going to be a month? Is it going to be 3 months? Is it going to be 6 months? Is it going to be a year? And yeah, you can sometimes have to wait over a year to hear back from a literary agent or a publisher. The publishing industry is a slow industry. Being an author requires a ton of patience. So don't expect an email like the next day, because it ain't happening. It'll also let you know what kinds of things to expect. So sometimes it'll give you information on if you make it through the first round, what can you expect them to expect from you for round 2, and you can start to get that stuff together. So some of them require multiple rounds. Some of them, there's the initial cold call that you follow through with the instructions on the website and send stuff off on its merry way. And then some will do a partial request, which is where we go from like 10 pages or a chapter to suddenly maybe they want 50 pages of your novel for them to look at. And then if they like that, they ask for a full request, which is where they ask for the entire novel, the whole thing in its entirety. Or sometimes they skip right to the full request. It all depends on their system and also how interested they are in your story. And so if you get to the end and they do want to sign with you, there is a whole contract. And even once you get to that point, you need to make sure, read over that contract, know what you're actually signing and getting into. Make sure you are aware, because there can be any number of stipulations that they're going to require of you, and you need to make sure you know what you're getting into. And there is a possibility that you can say, you know what, this is not what I expected, thanks, but no thanks. Don't just sign something just because you're like, oh, I have a literary agent, yay! You know, do not sign without reading it, because you never know what you're getting into. Make sure you know what percentage of your profits does the agent expect when you get published, because that's part of it. And so, you know, how much money are you then going to make? Make sure you do the math on that and you know how much you have to pay them, so that then you can know what all the expectations are. Some of them have sales goals where if you don't meet certain sales goals, they will drop you as a client and they'll no longer be your literary agent. Make sure that those goals are in line with the goals you can actually meet. If you can't meet those goals, don't sign with them, and let them know why, so then they're not just like, why did you waste my time, you know? Well, I'm sure they're going to feel like that anyway, but at least to keep everything professional so you don't get blackballed, which it's so easy to get blackballed in this industry by just acting like an idiot. And for God's sake, oh my God, if you get rejected, don't about it online, because they will see it and you will get blackballed. That is such a huge rookie mistake that I see far too many people make. Don't do that. If you want to have a fest privately with your friends, that's your prerogative. Don't do it publicly online, and for God's sake, don't do it at a convention where people can hear you. So yeah, make sure that you know what you're getting into. Make sure you are of the utmost professional at all times through this process, because it's a small world after all, and people talk. So make sure you know all of that. And the entirety of how the relationship with a literary agent works is that, okay, you have this manuscript that you're sending them, and ideally you have other books that you've already published. They're going to want more of the same. So if, let's say, you write romance novels and you submit them a romance novel, their expectation is that you're going to keep writing romance novels so that they can then go out and sell more of your romance novels. Because unless you are just a one-hit wonder like To Kill a Mockingbird, likely people are eventually going to get bored of your latest book and they're going to want more. You're going to have to write more and put more out there. That's how working as an author works. So if you suddenly want to just veer off to the left and suddenly be like, I'm going to write sci-fi now or whatever, your literary agent is going to be like, cool, that's nice, but I don't sell sci-fi stories. I need you to, you know, while you're writing your fun little sci-fi stories, you need to also write more romance novels for me to sell. So keep that in mind too, is how willing are you to not only, one, keep writing more books, because you have to do that if you have a literary agent. Two, how many more books do you want to write in the genre and style that you're writing? Because they have that expectation. Three, can you meet their quotas? Because they're going to give you sales goal quotas and stuff. There's going to be expectations and you have to meet them, otherwise they will drop you. So keep all of this in mind before going through that process. And that's part of why I'm saying that there's some goals that I personally need to meet before I go through this process again, is because of that expectation of that we need more of the same. And I'm a multi-genre author, so there are several different types of literary agents that I can potentially woo and ask to help support me, but then also I have to be willing to write more books in that genre. And so I am taking the time to do a little soul searching and be like, okay, what do I really want to focus on for my literary agent that I want to research? And what am I going to be willing to churn out way more books and make my primary focus, and everything else kind of take a back seat to that? Those are all things you have to keep in mind, especially if you're a multi-genre author like me, because it's very rare to have a literary agent that's going to work with you across multiple genres, because that's more work and that's also more relationships that they have to have with publishers. And honestly, that's the main reason why you want to have a literary agent, is so that you can utilize their relationships with publishers, in that literary agents are going to partner with publishers. And so that means that they can get your foot in the door and they can just basically go directly to the publisher and be like, hey, I've got a new book for you. And you're likely going to get accepted, and you're not going to have to go through all the red tape crap. And not only that, the publisher is going to do all of that on your behalf. You don't have to do the whole submission process. They do it for you. They're going to be like, hey, I need you to give me this, or I need you to give me that. And then they go off on their merry way and give it to the publisher. And so there's only so many publishers they're going to be able to cultivate relationships like that with. But conversely, there are also publishers like Random House, the big time publishers, where if you don't have an agent, they won't consider you. They don't take unagented manuscripts. So there's also that. It all depends on what your goals are and also what you're capable of as an author. And if you're a one-book wonder, that's okay. But don't expect a literary agent to sign you, because what exactly are they signing for? If you find that you're like, I'm really burnt out on writing sci-fi and I just really want to write magical realism, that's also something that you need to consider, is making sure that you know what genre you're getting into with your literary agent, so that you know, hey, you know what? I feel comfortable dedicating myself to this. You need to be up for that. So make sure you do a lot of soul searching with yourself, figuring out what your real goals are. And please, being famous and making lots of money are not real goals, okay? Like, they're the, yes, we would all love that. I mean, I personally don't really want to be famous. That sounds horrible, but some people want to be famous, and that's okay if that's your goal. It's just not my personal goal. But yeah, all of us want to make a living doing this at the end of the day, and getting a literary agent is a good way to do that. But the steps you need to take and the goals you need to meet in order to do that, you have to really ask yourself, am I capable of that? Do I want to do that? So take all of this in mind before you engage in querying literary agents, because it is a massive endeavor to undertake. And even if you get that far as to finally hook a literary agent, there's still so much more work that you're going to have to do. So keep all of that in mind. There is no easy button answer for, I am rich, famous author, yay. Doesn't exist. So I hope this video has been helpful, and if you liked it, please be sure to give it a like, and if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.